it's just not possible to do the things that we're supposed to do, that to provide the services that our community wants. And that's the other thing. We've got to make sure you have to have oversight, but at the same time, we've got to have local control. We're not all the same. The state of Texas is an amazing place and an amazing economy, but that economy is very diverse. And if we try to control everyone and have everyone do the same thing, we're not going to be creating the services and the needs of each community.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my special guest today is Joe Harrington. Joe is the superintendent at Hurst Euless Bedford ISD, which is in the Mid-Cities area of Texas, close to DFW Airport. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, my pleasure.
So, Joe, tell us a little bit about your role and what's going on in your world.
Well, my role as, superintendent, it's a busy time, a legislative year, so had a number of trips to Austin, but there's a lot going on in HEB ISD. And one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about, we've done a big push this year for CPR, hands-only CPR. I ended up on the American Heart Association board, and they reached out and said, "Hey, would you be willing to sit on the board?" And all I could think of is, well, there's one more thing.
Right.
We're trying to schedule meetings as is, and now I've added one more.
Right.
And then I thought to myself, well, I know they've got that Cycle Nation program, and I thought, I like to go to spin class once in a while, so I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do this. And then I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and so the whole piece with Damar Hamlin, when he basically died on the field, and the trainers, used the AED to start his heart up again. And so I said, okay, I'm interested. They asked me to go to a meeting, and I went to this Nation of Lifesavers meeting, and they started talking about Seattle, and that they had begun an initiative of training people and getting more people actual muscle memory and getting on the mannequins and really working CPR. And the results were that, based on the studies they did, that if you had an incident, a cardiac emergency outside of a hospital, you had a 6 times greater chance of somebody doing CPR in Seattle than you did in basically the rest of the country, including Dallas-Fort Worth. And, I'm like, okay, as a 61-year-old man, that's unacceptable.
Right.
And I'm like, we've got to do something about this. We're Texas. We like people. Yeah.
There's a lot of people in Texas.
So what could we do to increase that and change that? And so we started looking at what we do in Texas. And, so in Texas, kids have to receive training on CPR and the use of an AED, but the requirement is one time between grades 7 and 12. That one time can be as little as a video, or for what we do, we have our kids, we do it through our health classes or wherever they get their health credit. And then they are required to watch the video, but we actually do put them on the mannequins, but that's one time. And so what we did, we decided to write it into our curriculum that all of our 5th and 6th graders, and our 6th graders are elementary, we go elementary through 6.
Okay.
They will spend time on the mannequins. And my nurse is like, that's great, Joe, but I don't have enough kits. So we went from 6 kits to 60 within a few months. We got donations. We worked with the Heart Association, got some grants, and all of a sudden, all of our 5th and 6th graders are on the mannequin. We've got kids helping at the hospital. Texas Harris HEB is sending us their interns. And I'm like, holy cow.
Wow.
We've got something going on here. So we go, all of a sudden, I've got 3,600 kids, all my 5th and 6th graders who weren't getting this training are doing it. Then we decided, okay, how do we keep this going? So we decided just high school, we were going to get our band and athletics. And so same thing, talk to our coaches, our nurse trained everyone. And next thing you know, there they go. There, everyone's taking a day. Get the mannequins, get the kits, boom. We're going to do a day of hands-only CPR. And that has just blown up. The junior highs were supposed to start next year. They would not be left out. So the junior
No,
highs,
of course not, right? Yeah.
no, so
No
the junior
way.
highs started on their own, and so they're doing it. So what we saw was we all of a sudden went from a few kids getting these opportunities to thousands. I mean, we're a district of 23,000 kids, and
Wow.
our goal is to have our students multiple times, and hopefully from grade 5 on, we would love for them every year to get on the mannequin, practice CPR, and then have that muscle memory, and then hear over and over. Because, the first step is call 911.
Right.
And so I've created a little mantra of, are you going to use your phone to save someone's life or document their death? Because that's what they do
Mm,
nowadays. Our kids pull out their
wow.
phones and video instead of doing what we need you to call 911. We need
Right.
you to take these steps, save a life. Don't be a bystander, be an upstander, stand up for somebody. Um, and so I don't know. We're seeing good results as far as just the numbers. And
You're going to save somebody's life. Some
well,
child in your district is going to save somebody's life.
and that's
Mm.
the goal. The goal is
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we're ready to do what is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're excited about continuing that and then just expanding it. And we really haven't got any pushback. We've
Yeah.
expanded the number of kids that are participating in the Kids Heart Challenge, the old jump rope for heart. We even got the high school kids doing it because I didn't know this either. The high school kids, if they do, they can get community service hours. Well, all of your honor society kids, our international baccalaureate kids, they all need community service
Right.
hours.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they can get these on their couch. These kids, these are busy kids. But if
Yeah.
they'll complete the Finn's mission and watch the videos, that's 8 hours of community service,
Nice.
and that's gold for some of these kids. So
Yeah.
they're participating. So we're looking to continue to expand that. And it's one of those, we need to make sure our kids, they can get their scores in English and in reading and math. But there's also a community piece, and we need to make sure that if we do this, our community is safer than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part. I mean, we
Yeah.
we want our kids to be great citizens of our country, of our state, and of our cities. And I want them to be able to say, "Hey, this is a great place, a safe place." So I think it's an important piece.
It's interesting too because when I was a kid, I have a medical background. I'm an SLP, speech language pathologist, and I did some medical, and then I went into the schools for over half my career now. But taking it was always mouth to mouth
Yeah.
resuscitation, and now and I think about hands only because basically all you're doing is you're pushing the air when you do compressions you're pushing on the lungs as well. So that air is going in and out because that's how our lungs work. That diaphragm pulls it down and expands it. It's a pressure kind of thing. And it just is like, it's interesting. I just wanted to make that point because it's like, it makes so much sense
Yeah.
that as having somebody that's got a medical background and I understand the system and how the system works, it's really it's fascinating that they've gone that way.
Well, and it removes the hesitation, the
Yeah.
the
Who
the
wants to put their
transfer.
mouth on somebody else's mouth and
Yeah.
COVID? Yeah, I get it. I totally
Yeah.
get it.
And
Yeah.
so now, and the other thing, people are always afraid, I don't want to do it wrong. I'm like, if they need CPR, they're dead.
They're
They'll
dead. Yeah.
appreciate the effort. Just go
Yeah.
for it.
You're
Yeah.
not going to do it wrong if you
Yeah.
save somebody's life,
That's
even if you
exactly.
break a rib, because you probably will break
You
ribs.
you
Yeah.
probably will.
Yeah.
You know,
You
and
will
then,
break ribs. Yeah.
we talk about the pace and, whether we always laugh about, they always talk about staying alive. And now for the younger kids, it's baby shark.
Ah.
And then once you get that in your head, you can't get it out.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, please. I don't want to go there. Please don't
Yep.
go there. That's funny. It's so, and you're, because you're doing that also, you're going to have kids that all of a sudden are paying attention to health and saying, I want to be a doctor. I want to, this heart stuff is cool. And I love that kids are being exposed to and helping other human beings. You
Yeah.
know, that piece of it, our kids are, and they're no different than any other kids, but there's so much stuff on the phones and stuff that they're doing and just I can't even, my kids are 26, 27, and 22, almost 23. And my 27-year-old, she hates talking on the phone. My 26-year-old hates texting, chatting, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Don't make me call somebody. I don't want to talk on the phone. It's so crazy. I mean, what did we do? I had the phone with the cord that was attached to my ear, and you had to go in, you had to have the long cord so you could go into the bathroom to get
That,
away from your parents,
that's
right?
the thing. That there was nothing better than the long cord.
The long cord. Yeah. And they don't even, and then you stretch it too much and then you had a problem, right?
Yep.
They don't have a clue what that, and I've heard too also like we as older people hold our thumb and our forefinger and, tuck in. I'm doing this for the video audio as well, but you have your thumb up and your pinky out and the other three tucked in and you put that by your ear and that's a phone. Kids now, they have a flat palm and it's against their head because
Oh,
that's the kind of phone that they have. So when they think about a phone, it's, what are you doing? What are you doing with the thumb and the pinky up? Because we think of a receiver, right? They don't
yep.
have a receiver. They have a square box. They call it a brick when it doesn't work, right? So crazy. You and
Yep.
I grew up in a totally
Yep.
different generation.
Different
for sure.
time.
Yeah, 50. I'm 57, so you only got what, 4 years on me. So there you go. That's great. All right. Well, let's talk about another initiative. I know you talked about a couple of other things that you have going on, and we have some time, so I wanted to broach some of the other, because it sounds like you guys have some really cool stuff. I know that one's really neat. Let's go on to the next neat thing that you're doing.
Well, the other thing we've been trying to do is, you know, the state of Texas just recently passed the vouchers and
Mm-hmm.
the education savings accounts. But, at the end of what kind of bothered me is if you're going to set aside public money for private schools, let's make sure we're fully funding the public schools.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
and we're not there yet. But the mantra was that we needed this because there wasn't choice. And I think that really that bothers me in the sense that we have tremendous choice. The public schools offer so many programs, and we're not done.
Mm-hmm.
We're a big school. I have two big 6A high schools, a couple of the biggest schools in the state. We offer lots of programs, and we're continuing to add. We didn't we we don't have an ag program. We didn't have a welding program. So last year we added welding. We're adding early college this year.
Oh,
We're
nice.
adding a
Mm-hmm.
band school of choice for elementary school so kids can start playing their instruments earlier. We're excited about that. We're adding JROTC. These are things that we saw that our community wanted, and so we're looking at them. We're
Mm-hmm.
working right now to look to see if we can add an HVAC program. Those certifications in the trades are huge.
Yeah.
We've had an international baccalaureate program for a number of years, and we produce, I think it's one of the biggest number of diploma graduates, IB diploma of a public school. And we don't have it at one, we have it at both of our schools. Both high
Wow.
schools have it. Um, this mantra that there is no choice, there is lots of choice. And we
Mm-hmm.
offer lots of choice for our kids and for our families. And we're going to make sure we continue to. And it's one of these, making sure that we're spreading the truth.
Mm-hmm.
This lack of choice mantra is just not true. If this is how we want to spend excess money, that's up to the legislature. But let's make sure it's excess. And we just passed a big funding bill, and we had a couple of issues. One of them was teacher salaries, so they took care of that. But the rest of the bill really doesn't provide what we had hoped for or really needed. And if we might have salaries, but are we going to be cutting programs in the future if we don't
Mm-hmm.
have the funding? Now, I will
Mm-hmm.
have to say this: HEB, we've done a great job. being very frugal and financially efficient with our funds. And so we're not cutting anything. We have enough
Nice.
money to ride this out and to look at some other options and ways to become solvent. But you know, I was asked to come to Austin and speak to the Texas Doge Committee as they're talking about
Oh,
the
right. Yeah.
the efficiencies. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a group out there, Education Resource Group. They rate HEB as the most financially efficient district in the state of Texas, and I have a deficit.
Congratulations. And
So
you have
if
a deficit.
and we have a deficit. So if we have a
Wow.
deficit, then it's just not possible to do the things that we're supposed to do, that to provide the services that our community wants. And that's the other
Mm-hmm.
thing. We've got to make sure you have to have oversight, but at the same time, we've got to have local control. We're not all the same. The state of Texas is an amazing place and an
Right.
amazing economy, but that economy is very diverse. And if we
Mm-hmm.
try to control everyone and have everyone do the same thing, we're not going to be creating the services and the needs of each community.
Right.
The three cities of Hercules Bedford are very different than the rural communities of Texas.
Right.
And so we have got to make sure that we create a way, and again, one thing we're not afraid of, we're not afraid of accountability, but we need to make sure that these systems evaluate everything correctly and don't force, one size does not fit all. And we've
Right.
got to make sure that if I'm doing the best for my community, that may not be the best for accountability. And I've said it before, I'm not going to chase a check mark at the expense of a kid.
Yeah.
So
Well, good for you.
we're gonna take care of our kids, and we'll figure out the check marks another time.
Yeah. So explain to me and to our listeners a little bit more about the vouchers, because not everybody lives in Texas
Yeah.
and that's going to hear this, and I want them to understand what's happening. And that my other question for you is, how is that going to affect special education services as well? I'm a speech therapist, so
Yep.
my mind always goes to what's going to happen with special education if as this goes into effect.
No, the vouchers it's creating these education, savings accounts, they're calling them. I think, it's up to $10,000,
Okay.
for a private school. It's, up to $2,000, for homeschool students. Um, there are some of the restrictions that came up late. I liked. They put some, I was real worried about how these were going to be. They have to, the money can only be used for certain providers. So it's not just money going straight to the parents. Um, for
Yeah,
homeschool,
that's
I
good.
think it's really being pushed for, like, if they were going to go to Sylvan or one of those outside tutoring, to use that. And I think a small percentage, maybe 10 to 20% can be used on hardware, like purchasing computers, etc. Um, the amount of the voucher goes up to $30,000 for special education
Okay.
students, depending on the needs. I think the limiting factor there is there's a limited number of private schools that do serve the higher needs special education students.
Right.
So, and some of those are very good
Mhm.
schools, but
Yeah.
we've always worried, what need are we filling? And this idea that suddenly, um, kids of poverty are going to be able to afford private school. We don't see a whole lot of private schools that you're going to be able to go to for $10,000. You're not
$10,000.
going to have
Yeah.
free lunch. You're not going to have transportation. Um, and then many of the ones at that rate are religious based, which that's fine. I went to Catholic school for elementary school,
Mhm.
growing up in New York, but that was a choice my dad made and my mom made, to
Mhm.
go there. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the effect going to be? I've told people I'm not worried about vouchers. I'm not scared
Yeah.
about vouchers. I I am opposed to the concept that we're going to spend public money on private schools when we're still not fully funding our public schools. And
Mhm.
we're still working our way through this last bill that we have, but you know, we're not back to where we were in 2019 as far as what we can afford. And that's the piece that,
Yeah.
you know, it, I've heard people, well, we can't keep up with inflation. Well, if we can't keep up with inflation, then we can't provide the same services. So we're going
Right.
to have to find a way to keep up with inflation because I still got to
Hmm.
pay the electric bill.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's
So,
yeah.
but going back to what we offer and the idea that there's a lack of choice, we had a charter school in the area close, and a lot of the parents were calling us, and they were very nervous about where they were going to go to school. And we're not an open enrollment district, and my board actually changed policy very quickly, and we told those families, in district, out of district, the school is here. We'll take everybody. And so we
Hmm.
had a kind of an open house at one of our buildings, and the comment was, we knew we were giving up something to come to a small charter. We didn't realize how much, because they didn't
Ah.
realize what we do have. They came and we had a meeting at our CTE center, and they're like, we didn't know this existed. And that's the other thing, is sometimes people just don't know. And some people would have still made that choice. That's great.
Yeah.
Private school, charter school, public school. We've all been around for a long time, and we all
Hmm.
have our role, our purpose. And at the end of the day, too, believe it or not, we're all friends. You know,
Right. Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
that
I
this,
interview you all. I've worked
yeah,
with y'all. There's that Texas y'all, but it's true,
yeah,
And that's the beauty of education. You have a passion, you love the kids, you're doing everything you can to serve those kids. I've seen charter schools the same way. I've seen private schools the same way. People love kids. We want what is best for kids. And something I think the pandemic showed us is that sometimes it's public school, sometimes it's charter school, sometimes it's private school. And the thing about, and I'm a therapist, so IDEA is a big part of everything that I do. Individuals with Disability Education Act. If you don't know what IDEA is, I always try to make sure I don't acronym people to death.
I know. And
Yeah,
I'm bad about speaking in it myself, so
we
it's
do. I
hard.
mean,
I
just
know.
yeah, we
Yeah,
do. But that mandate is only, that law is only if you take federal funds.
yeah.
If you take federal funds, then you are mandated by law to provide special education services to that student. When I started my career, I did not know that. I did not know that private schools did not have to provide those services because I knew people who had a special needs child and they went to public school. And then the rest of their kids were going to private school. And I was like, why are you making, I didn't understand the choice that they were making until I understood that, because that particular private school did not offer services that that child needed. And it's like, it's kind of like, I mean, there's just this dichotomy of, yes, I know you're choosing this, and I understand. I'm a Christian. I also, I understand private public schools and charter schools and private schools that are Christ based. I get that. We all love our kids. We all love our kids. Do you remember the song? I hope the Russians love their children too. It was during the Cold War way back. It's the same kind of concept. Everybody loves. We
Yep.
we as human beings love our children. And I'll tell you, if you harm a child and you go to jail, you better hide, because
Yeah.
those people have justice. That is the worst thing you can do, is hurt a child and go to jail. And they know that you did it, you're in trouble, because it's such a societal thing. We love our kids. And it just, so, I don't have the answers either, but I know that you love the kids and you want the kids to be successful. And so whatever you choose, do the best that you can for the kids that you've got. And let's fund education. Let's fund special education. And IDEA hasn't,
Oh,
child find,
yeah.
never been funded.
Well, that's what, we were talking about. And I know we're hoping to see some additional funding through these bills, and
Yeah,
there's some new mechanisms coming on board. So it may be a year or two before we fully know, but we estimate that special education last year was underfunded at least $2 billion in the state of Texas.
crazy.
And
Just in
and that
Texas.
but that's not just Texas. That's the feds also not living up
Hmm.
to
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
their
Yeah.
percentages either. And so, and the Department of Education going away. What is that going to mean? We get our title grants,
Yeah.
we get our special ed funding. If that money moves, and what is
Yeah.
that all going to look like? But that's, people always, you were talking about, the requirements and of special ed. Now, what the feds have no real hold on K-12 education. That, it's
No,
it, it, the
it's
10th
at the
Amendment.
state level. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
at
it's
the
not
state
in the
level. It absolutely
Constitution,
is.
so it
Yeah.
goes to the
Which is
state.
the argument that you shouldn't have a federal Department of
And
Education. And I'm not saying I'm not going to take a side on that here. I have my opinion, but I'm not going to take a side.
well, but that's the thing. Is if you're going to remove yourself, the feds, their strings is the money, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's how
Yep.
without money, they don't have any control. But
Right.
again, if you go back, then they shouldn't. But if we're going to do that, then we've got to move all of
All of
that
them.
into the states, and the states would then have to account for all of that. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's my hope if it does happen. But then at the state level, then the states, I love Texas. I live in Texas. I chose to live in Texas. We've been here for 3.5 years and it's a beautiful state. And I've lived in multiple states, I didn't just I grew up in Nebraska, but I lived in multiple states as an adult and moved down here 3.5 years ago and I love it here. And I love Texas. I love the Texans. My dad had been down here for 25 years before that's kind of, everybody was kind of moving. My whole family, like over the years, had moved. My brother's been in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for 25 years. My dad, he God rest his soul, he passed away a couple of years ago, but I got to see him more in the last 2 years of his life than I'd seen him in 10 because I moved to Texas, right? But everybody here just wraps their arms around you and says, "Hey, we're happy you're here. Pulls you in." I love that about Texas, but not every state is that way. And that's the big concern, I think, is, which states are going to manage it well and which states are not. Because anytime that you take an influx of funds like that into a department, the prayer and the hope is that it will just flow, take that piece out and have it flow down where it needs to be at the school level. Because when you've got program after program after program, pet project after pet project, that doesn't ever make it to the schools. That money in the federal government isn't making it. So my prayer is if they do that, that it will. I said I wasn't going to get political, but I guess I am a little bit. But, just as let's make sure the money gets where it needs to go,
Yeah.
which is our children and that's the frustration when you pay taxes is like, where is that money going? You make a lot of money and then the government takes a big old chunk of it and it's like, what am I paying for?
Yeah.
And we want it to pay for our kids. We want our kids to have a good education. We don't want you to have a deficit. And I think that the nation, the people, whether you're for or against it, I don't care. But let's just take care of our kids, right? Let's get them. And that's the fun. And that's, I think, where we need to be. Like everybody believes that. Everybody believes that.
Yeah.
So let's make that happen. And there, I've said you
There
got
you
me on my soap. You are the first person, Joe, that has gotten me on my soapbox.
There we go.
I've tried really hard to stay off my soapbox, but there you go. Like it or not, you can not listen to my podcast if you think I said the wrong thing. But I love the kids, and I want the kids to have, just like you do, and just like anybody on either side of the aisle, we want those kids to get a good education and for our teachers to be paid well and for our programs to work so that our kids grow up and become the people that we know that they can be.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, sorry. Oh, we are definitely from the same generation, you and I. So tell me, Joe, where do people, it's been a great conversation and I appreciate you letting me rant. I don't usually rant, but there you go. Where do people go to find out more about Joe Harrington and HEBISD? Where do they go?
Well, HEBISD, just Hearst Euless Bedford Independent School District. If you Google us, you'll find us.
Great.
And we're an interesting district, and we're worth a little more to look at. We're one of the most diverse districts in the entire state. And I think Trinity High School is often considered the most diverse high school in the nation.
Love that.
Just very interesting place. But find out more information on our website. You can find my contact information is on our website also, Joe Harrington at hebisd.edu.
Beautiful.
But if I can help anybody out, give me a holler.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation. Keep up the good work. We know that I know you're doing it. I know you're doing it. And the kids, and I really would love to hear, because it's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. Some child is going to save their parents' life, their grandparents' life because of what you've done. And make sure you let us know when that happens, because we will make a big deal about it from our corner of the world, because what you're doing is changing the world for the better. And on the Brighter Together podcast, that's the point. We are brighter together. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.